Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Design Review Board. It is 5 p.m. on June 13th, 2024. Mrs. Dobson, can you please take the roll?
Yes, Chair. Thank you. Board Member Coveney,
No, here.
Those don't work.
Board Member Gibbs,
Here.
and Chair Pro Tem Neve,
Here.
and Chair Gannon.
Here. And please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Mrs. Coveney, do you mind? Have you done it yet? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands. One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I like tempo. Okay. So the meeting procedure will be as follows. We'll have public communications, which means any member of the public can address the board on items not on the agenda, but in the purview of the Design Review Board. Comments will be limited to a maximum of 2 minutes per speaker for a total of 15 minutes for all comments unless extended for good cause by the board. Then we have the consent calendar, which consists of board minutes and modification of agenda order, if any, and then the regular order of business. It is a short board. It's a 2-2 vote. If a 2-2 vote happens, it's a denial of approval. Each applicant has the right to continue before a vote. So regular order of business, the chair will introduce the item, address, and DR number. Applicants will take their seats at the front desk. Ex parte disclosures by the boards. Staff will present summary presentation and comments. Board will then have the opportunity to question staff. Then the public hearing is declared open. The applicant team has 5 minutes for a presentation. Members of the public have 3 minutes to comment, and then the applicant has 3 minutes for rebuttal, and then the opportunity for the board to question the applicant. Public hearing is then closed, and board will enter into discussion and deliberation. Okay. Any person residing within 300 feet of the project who disagrees with the board's actions, they have 14 days to appeal the board's decision. All right. So 4.1, the minutes for May 23rd, huh? Oh, yeah, I just got done saying that. Public communications, do we have anyone from the audience that like to speak on items not on the agenda this evening? No? Don't be shy. Okay, so do we have a modification of the agenda order? No? Okay. So then we have the consent calendar for May 23rd, 2024. I have to abstain because I was absent.
And so, Madam Chair, if I may jump in, typically when a board member is absent, that is fine. If you did watch the meeting and are aware of what went on and you feel comfortable voting, you're allowed to. But of course, if that isn't the case, then go ahead and abstain. Thank you.
I did watch the meeting.
Chair, I'm prepared to make a motion on that. I move that we adopt consent item 4.1 and approve the May 23, 2024 draft DRB minutes. I was at that hearing.
Second that.
Board Member Coveney,
Yes.
Board Member Gibbs,
Yes.
Chair Pro Tem Neve,
Yes.
and Chair Gannon.
Yes. So the first item for regular business is 5.1, located at 2230 Park Avenue, Design Review 24-0420. Yeah, Mr. Armstrong. Mr. Latham, do you have a staff report for us?
I do. Thank you, Chair Gannon. I need screen share. All right, item 5.1 is design review project at 2230 Park Avenue. The project site is located at the Top of the World neighborhood. It's an R1 zone property. The project involves modifications to a prior approval. These modifications, there is an open code enforcement case for this property, as the patio cover was built approximately 1 foot 6 inches taller than what was approved previously. And there is also an elevated deck at the rear of the property that is larger than what was on the plans previously. And so in order to clean up the record, and we need to count that as an elevated deck addition. And then landscaping, there are modifications to the landscaping on one side of the property between this property and 2240 Uphill. The uphill neighbor at 2240 Park Avenue is concerned about the elevated deck, the patio height increase, as well as smoke from the barbecue. I would like to point out that landscape design review criteria 9.9 guideline mentions locating outdoor use areas to avoid unreasonable impacts to neighbors. And it specifies designing outdoor fireplaces and barbecues with consideration of smoke and site wind patterns and setbacks. And this is the photo that the neighbor submitted. And they have, actually, this is a video, it's a photo, a screenshot of the smoke. It is staff's recommendation to approve the project. However, if if you can make a design consistency, sorry, if you can make the findings for design guideline 9.9 to add that to the resolution. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you. And does board have, do we have ex parte? ahead.
I'll start. I met with Kurt Armstrong at the site.
I met with Mr. Armstrong and I met and went into the neighbor, Mr. Aldestimazi's house. I also obviously read public commentary, looked at the video and the photos provided.
And I too had a site visit with Kurt Armstrong.
And I had a site visit with Kurt Armstrong and spoke with the uphill neighbor, Mr. Aldemasi.
Now we can, board, do we have questions for staff? No? The public hearing is declared now open. The applicant, yeah, that's declared open. So the applicant team, you have 5 minutes.
Check, check.
Perfect.
Kurt Armstrong, nice to meet or see all of you again. The board, appreciate you having me. I had the opportunity to meet all of you at my house and explain the situation. I am the homeowner at 2230 Park Avenue. I don't have anything further at this time to share beyond what I shared with you, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you or anyone has.
And at this time, any members of the public, you have 3 minutes to comment.
Good afternoon. My name is Mahmoud Aldemasi. I live at 2240 Park Avenue, and we've lived here for over 30 plus years. The house was custom designed by Brian Jeanette, and we went through all the obstacles that the DRB specified for us. That's fine. However, it's kind of disappointing to see some of these things that are being approved that doesn't adhere to what Laguna is all about, protecting not only Lagunans, but the neighborhood and so on and so forth. There's no consideration whatsoever. From what I'm seeing is that people can build whatever they want and come back, oh, mea culpa. I expanded this beyond what the scope is, and guess what? I can apply for modification and let's come back and let's approve it and stamp it and we go on. I don't think this is fair to the neighbors, to be honest with you, and I will share some of the stuff that is going on at our house. From the barbecue, okay, so the barbecue from the moment it was built. I never objected to it. However, when it was finished, you can tell it is drastically higher than it was actually was supposed to be. I contacted the city asking what's going on because I had no problem with Kurt. It was cordial until a couple of issues started and it went south. And my problem is the height of the barbecue and the smoke. And if I can ask Daniel to play the video, it is absolutely a nightmare for us. We have literally to experience all that smoke coming into our house. 85% of our windows face west to take advantage of this view. And yet, when they turn on their barbecue, and sometimes it says overnight, all of that smoke, we have to literally scramble to close all the windows because guess what? That smoke is coming into the house. It literally smells like fire, okay? That's one thing. We have a baby, a 17-month-old daughter. And all of that smoke, we have to close the windows, and guess what? We have to turn on the AC, and that smoke is still inside the house. Not only that, why should I pay that, go through the expense? You know how expensive the electricity is. Why should I turn on the AC when it's really beautiful outside? Can somebody tell me that? And the second thing is, we talk about this. Okay, we talk about this. Did anybody measure the height of these and the distance? May I switch to the other the balcony, please? I have put in side-by-side pictures of that the balcony. If you look at those, it will tell you that the balcony is extended. This is after, but if you can switch to the side-by-side of the two before and after stake. If I finish that thought, please. The two pictures, please, Daniel. You will see that before and after with the one with the stakes, that the balcony is expanded over a foot. Okay, respect to the architect and whomever measured it. It's not 3 inches. Okay, because according to the application, it's 11 feet. That makes it 3 inches. The balcony is at least 40 feet long. So that makes
And
it.
in conclusion?
In conclusion, I literally would hope that the board would look at this seriously because there's consequences for ours. If we ever decide to sell, this is a disclosure item. The smoke is literally a nightmare for us. Thank
Okay,
you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Going once, twice? All right, Mr. Armstrong, you have 3 minutes for a rebuttal.
Okay, I'm on. To address the rear deck first, it's down to the measurements and what we got approved. I'm not sure what to say about the photos other than every time you take a photo from a different angle or height, it changes their perspective. So I just ask that if we go through and do the measurements to match up the drawings, you're going to find that it matches what's there. The house never changed on the back. I think it's a perception of a facade that used to be on the old house, like it was a column that stuck out. We removed all that and it's flat. So it gives this perception that there's an overhang, but it's the same. So I'd say just measure it and that'll give you the answer. In regards to the barbecue, I didn't know that was, and the smoke, I didn't know that was a DRB item. I feel bad. I've never heard that from my neighbor before, which is unfortunate because I try to keep open communication all the time. And I will certainly do whatever I can, regardless of this, to help minimize any smoke and communicate with them. That's my comments for the moment.
No questions for the applicant? Okay, so the public hearing is now closed. Board, do we enter into, you like to go first? Okay, go ahead.
All right. First, I'll say that it's never a good situation where the building goes beyond DRB approved plans. I don't like to see it. None of the board members do. That said, the standard that comes to us with items that are, non-permitted work is, would we have approved it had it come before us before it was built? And that is the standard we need to apply. Also, based upon the advice that we've gotten from, I believe, through Amber, from the city attorney, we can't reconsider, and this goes to the objecting neighbor, the existence of the pool house, the existence of the barbecue. So that is a given. What we can consider and what is before us is the extension of the balcony beyond the original plans, which I'll get to, the roof of the pool house, which goes 1.5 feet higher, and the landscaping with the Japanese privet trees. So I'll start with the balcony. Whether it's 2 inches or 1 foot, in my view, we would have approved it. It has no impact on view equity. It's such a nominal increase in the balcony that it doesn't impinge with noise. From my view there, I didn't see any impact on privacy. So I go with the city's determination, the staff report that it was 2 inches, but even if it was 1 foot, it wouldn't change my mind. With respect to the roof, 1 foot 5 inches, I did not look at it from the adjoining neighbor's house. I walked over there, he was not there, and that neighbor did not request a site inspection by me. If you don't, I'm not going to reach out. I figure you have the knowledge and the obligation if you have a view equity issue. So some of my other colleagues who did view the house may have a different view, but I looked at it from walking onto his property by the front door, also from the side yard. 1.5 feet does not impact view equity in my mind. Any view that Mr. Aldemasi has, which I suspect is an incredible view from where his location is, if it's impacted at all, it's not only nominal. It would not affect my view of view equity. I think had it come before me, I would have improved the 1.5 foot increase in that height. The landscaping, which I think the plan called for trees below the retaining wall, and you have the trees above the retaining wall. Those are Japanese privet trees. They can grow taller than the fence line. I would only approve this project if we condition the height of those trees on going no higher than the fence top, which I believe is 5 feet.
I believe it's 5 feet. Yeah.
Okay, with respect to the smoke issue, the only authority we have regarding the barbecue smoke is causing you to reduce the chimney height and the building height, potentially, well, the roof height and potentially the exhaust height by 1.5 feet. Candidly, I don't see that reduction as improving the smoke generated from the barbecue by a reduction in height. If anything, increasing the height of the exhaust will cause smoke to rise higher, which would be more likely to avoid the house. The lower the exhaust, the more likely it is to go into the neighboring Aldemasi's house. I know that from personal experience and simple, heat and the physical dynamics of smoke. So I think it's a pretty extreme measure and I don't think any evidence has been presented showing that if you reduce the height of the rooftop, it's going to materially impact the smoke that goes to the neighbors. I think the neighbor's problem, which is with some justification, given the proximity, the neighbor's problem is the location of the barbecue and the vent, not the difference between 1.5 feet in height. And unfortunately for the neighbor, that's not before us. That was before the DRB, I believe, in 2021. And we have no authority to change that approval, and I don't intend to do so tonight. So with the one condition of limiting the height of the Japanese privet trees to 5 feet and going no higher than the fence height, I would approve this project.
And I'll go next. And I can basically mirror everything my colleague said. The one thing, and we had spoken about it on site, had everything to do with the Japanese privet height. And so all that landscaping, I think along, I know that the view corridor, the issue with the view corridor and the balcony was never the size of the balcony. It was always about the awning. If you go back and look at the original approval, it was about making sure that there wasn't an awning, or if you had an awning, that it was a retractable awning so that, excuse me, that it didn't impede that view corridor. And the only thing I see where that might impede it would be, excuse me, the Japanese privet. So I'm in agreement. I think as long as it says here that it could be 8 feet, I don't know anything about the plants, but I think you should keep it. It's easy to say that just to keep it at the fence line. So that would, then I will approve your project.
Okay, and I'll go in again. I concur with my colleagues here on their assessment based on these are approvals to previous modifications. I agree with the smoke details that Tom provided. I also want to note that in the previous approval, there was no neighborhood concerns. It appears that your neighbor, Mr. Aldemasi, had no issues with the location of the grill at that time. So that's probably why there was no, issue related to that. I would just request that if there is some way for you to abate that smoke through another exhaust system or perhaps a fan attachment that could help disperse that smoke a little bit, it would be accommodating. But in my opinion, it's under the guise of all of our design review criteria having been previously approved, and with the landscaping assessment to be restricted to the height. And that's it.
Well, I have nothing further to add. I support what Mr. Gibbs verbatim had to say. Brilliant comments. Thank you. So it looks like you've got your vote. Can
I just make one clarifying?
yes.
So I'm hearing that we want the privet to be capped at 5 feet above grade. They're currently in a area with a large retaining wall, but you want it no more than 5 feet.
the higher fence?
Yeah, I think
We
the
don't
best
have
way to
an
do
exact height measurement
the
on the
best way to
fence.
do the condition is 5 feet above grade.
5 feet above grade.
Right. And, because the fences can change and so forth. So I think that's the best way to
And the
do it.
grade is taken from the height of the retaining wall
Yeah,
where
and
they were currently planted.
And do we know
Mhm.
if the
Actually, let
plants
me-
can survive 5 feet?
Give me a,
Yeah.
5 feet?
Mhm.
Okay.
give me a second. I just want to see the retaining. I took a picture of the retaining. Well, that doesn't really work because if you do it 5 feet above the retaining wall, hold on a second, let me get a picture out. It slopes up from the retaining wall. Yeah, it slopes up quite a distance. I think that it should be 5 feet above grade. The grade of that hill's not going to change. You would almost have to build a new retaining wall to increase the height of that grade. I would say this, no higher than 5 feet above the property line. And we use the property line, which is where I'm sure the fence is.
Property line or that's airspace? It grows into the airspace.
Mike?
And let's do 5. Pat, how would you recommend that be done? I think probably 5 feet above grade
Right,
works.
so what I have written is the approved Japanese privet trees shall at all times be maintained at a height level that does not exceed 5 feet above grade.
I'm good with that. I think that provides the protection.
Do I have an opportunity for one question? No. Okay. On the height of the tree. Okay.
All right. Do you need clarification?
Well, because there's 2 in the front of the property that are on
Oh,
the plan.
excuse me, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry.
If the board member has a specific question or would like to hear from the property owner, feel free to ask.
He's correct. I took
And-
pictures of that and the applicant showed me it. That only applies to the trees along the side yard adjoining 2240 Park Avenue and does not include the 2 privet trees that are along Park, inside the fence, but along Park Avenue.
Do we have a motion?
Go, do it. All right, let me get out the staff report, make sure there's not something funny in here. Without Lewis, yeah, where's our standard motion? Okay. Chair, I move that the board adopt resolution 240420, approving the design review 24-0420, and that we make the findings that the action is exempt from CEQA under the categorical exemption in 15301, and that an additional special condition be added that the Japanese privet trees be maintained no higher than 5 feet above grade. And that does not apply to the 2 privet trees that are inside the fence but along Park Avenue, but does apply to all privet trees along the property line with 2240 Park Avenue.
I'd like to amend that motion, please. Revise the resolution to include findings for guideline 9.9 under the landscape finding and reflect the findings as verbalized by the board.
That's a good addition, so that is included in my motion.
I second that.
Thank you. Board Member Coveney,
Yes.
Board Member Gibbs,
Yes.
Chair Pro Tem Neve,
Yes.
and Chair Gannon.
Yes.
Thank you. That's 4-0.
Okay. Next up, 5.2, 3089 Burn Drive, design review 24-0564. Do we have ex parte by the board?
Yes, I visited the site with Mr. Ennis, and I also met the owner.
And I as well met with Marshall Ennis and Cameron Keast at the site.
I met with Marshall at the site and the owners, I believe the couple. I also met with Laura Keller at 3079 Burn.
And I too had a site visit with Marshall Ennis and the owner Cameron Keast. Mr. Latham, do you have a staff report for us ready?
Yes, thank you.
You have the floor.
Item 5.2 is design review at 3089 Burn Drive. This project site is located in the Top of the World neighborhood on a flag lot. The garage is proposed to have a rooftop deck on top of it, and it's in this location here. There are concerns from staff on this project in that the design integrity section of the design guidelines specifically states avoid rooftop decks. Neighbor compatibility is an issue in that there are no rooftop decks in this neighborhood, and privacy as it overlooks the nearby neighboring property. So it is staff's recommendation to deny this project. That concludes my presentation.
Marshall,
It's my turn.
it's your turn.
Marshall Ennis, architect for the project. I understand staff's concern about this, and it doesn't say you can't have roof decks, but it says to try to avoid roof
Marshall,
decks.
I'm sorry to interrupt. The public hearing is now open. Yeah, thank you. And
Do I have to
does,
start over? Can I?
you get to start over. You get to reintroduce yourself again.
Oh, thank you.
Does the board have questions for staff? No? Okay, now it's you.
Hi, I'm Marshall Ennis. I'm the architect for the project. I understand staff's concern for a rooftop deck, but this is unique in so many ways. It's a very long flag lot, so it's not on the street. I have 7 owners who have signed a letter, and I presented each one of you with the letter and the aerial photograph showing where the owners were adjacent to the property, and they had no concern for privacy, and we had situated it properly. When they talk about privacy, I find it kind of puzzling, because then you look at the hill beyond up the backyard, and every one of those houses look down on my client's property. So privacy, I don't see as being a super concern in this neighborhood and in this location. If we were down in the village and it was one of those rectangle lots areas and you were surrounded by properties, I could see that being out of character with the neighborhood. I believe we've worked hard to do this. We've worked with the neighbors. The neighbors are very excited about all the work we're doing on this house, and that this is just a small opportunity for this owner to get a view and also to enjoy a outdoor area on top of his garage. I don't feel it has the impact as far as privacy. I don't feel it has, when we talk about precedent, I've been doing this for way longer than I'd like to admit. And I don't walk in here ever thinking there's precedent. I walk in here knowing that each one of these projects is a custom, one-of-a-kind project, no matter what. And then we look at it individually and, not as a group. So I would hope you could find your way to approve this project tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. And now anyone from the public wish to speak on this project? Yeah.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me okay? My name is Laura Keller, and I am in fact the neighbor that if anybody was going to be concerned about privacy, it would be me. If you want to put that picture up, I'm the one that the roof deck would look right down upon. And I am not even one little bit concerned about this. We've lived there for a long time. It is an absolute blessing that they are fixing up the property the way they are. It's really been suffering over the last several years. And what they are proposing is a small, very small, compared to the projects that are happening up above us. This is a small little place for them to put a couple of beach chairs and look at the ocean. So I am not concerned about privacy, and I've spoken with neighbors. Similarly, they are not concerned, nor are we concerned about precedents. We have a really unusual piece of property. Both of us set way back, can't see anything from the street. There are no other houses or lots that are anything like ours. So precedent is also not a concern. And I'm more than happy to take any questions from you guys and address any issues you might have.
No,
Nothing?
no.
Okay.
Thank you. Well, you have 3 minutes to rebuttal. She's singing your praises. You can complain about
Rebut that?
something.
I think that she's perfectly accurate in her presentation of the deck on the roof. How's that? Thank you.
Okay. Board questioning the applicant? No? You have any questions for the applicant? Okay. Well, that closes the public hearing, and we'll go into board comments and deliberation. I'd like to go first, if that's okay with you. Okay. So staff doesn't support the rooftop decks. Although I respect staff's cautionary position discouraging rooftop decks, I hold a different opinion. History would show over the last 4 years that I hold an unpopular opinion for rooftop decks. But for this one, I believe the board could and should support this application for a rooftop deck above a garage, because each of us as a board are directed to look at each property individually. We're on the same path. As each property in Laguna Beach has a unique circumstances, therefore it does not set a precedent for rooftop decks as staff and guidelines suggest. It only sets a precedence throughout all of Laguna for a fair consideration of facts as they relate to the guidelines. So fun fact. The code supports rooftop decks. The proposed deck conforms with 25.50.008C, which allows for the deck to encroach 4 feet into the 20-foot front yard setback. Therefore, the proposed garage rooftop deck is 14 feet from the property line. Back to my notes. So design review guidelines discourages rooftop decks, which means the guidelines allow each property their right to a fair consideration based on the special circumstances, of the design review guidelines. So for privacy and view equity, there's no way does approving this application violate either of the two, as the neighbor adjacent has willfully spoken of at the podium. So in fact, all the adjoining neighbors support the project. And for neighborhood compatibility and design integrity, I found that the adjoining neighbors enjoy ocean views from their outdoor living space. 3010 Burn Drive, just up the street, has a rooftop over a portion of their single-story home. Therefore, the evidence shows the neighborhood compatibility and design integrity have been satisfied. I support your project. Mhm.
I'll go, I'll go next. I have to say, and Marshall, you know me, I do not generally support rooftop decks ever. And I went into this thinking, here's another, bite of the apple, trying to get another rooftop deck. And I was amazingly surprised to go away thinking that I am going to support your project. Because for all the reasons that board member or chair Gannon stated, this is a very, very unusual situation, a very unusual property with all of the neighbors' support and tucked way back in, to this, away from the street. I don't think that it's going to be, although I wouldn't go so far as to say neighborhood compatible, but I don't feel that it really meets the litmus test to say that it's absolutely should not be. So I will support your project.
Well, I join Board Member Neve in disliking rooftop decks. And that is, the reason why they're frowned upon by guidelines and have yet to be approved in my time on the board. However, they're guidelines. And it doesn't say no rooftop decks. And it, even neighborhood compatibility is a guideline. I am concerned about precedent. I think when you allow one rooftop deck in, it can become like dominoes because it's not fair to the next person and the next person and the next person. So I'm very concerned about precedent. So I want to make my position really clear. I'm supportive of this project because of the following special circumstances. And absent these circumstances, and really all of them, I would be voting no. So this should not set a precedent. I think this is a one-off in that neighborhood. I walked up and down the street. I must have missed the one you saw, but I did not see a rooftop deck. And I would very likely be against, although I would consider all the evidence in any application it comes from, but any visible rooftop deck from Bern. So the special circumstances that I find in this matter that caused me to be in a position to approve it are, one, it's in the back of the lot. It is far removed from Bern and simply not, with small bird's eye view, it's really not visible. Number two is there's no privacy issues. Number three is there's no view, in fact, there's no view issues at all. Four, it's a very small, modest rooftop deck. And five, and I would say most importantly, broad neighborhood support. And I did speak to Laura Keller, who did speak, and was at her house, and she is clearly the most impacted. I think had she objected, I would be probably doing a different vote today. So I think, Marshall, your client should thank Laura for being very understanding. And for those reasons, because of those special circumstances, I support the project.
Mrs. Coveney, you have the floor.
Thank you. I've been struggling. I wanted to hear what my colleagues had to say because I am massively against rooftop decks. I feel like it will set a precedent in the city. I do think many, many people want these, and many of them have come before the board prior to me being on here requesting one. And I've had personal experience of seeing it happen in parts of my South Laguna, and the troubles that can arise from that. The struggle I'm having is what everyone has mentioned, is this is a very, very unique home, and in a unique neighborhood with unique supportive neighbors, which is always nice to see. So I wanted to ask Amber, is there, as far as setting precedent, it would, I mean, I guess you've got the support of the board, so it's just more for me to just, would this be a precedent-setting event that would be then in the record that all boards supported rooftop deck? And
I think that's a great question for the city attorney, but I would just offer that it seems that the board has expressed that there are unique circumstances to this site. And usually when we talk about not setting a precedent, it's based on, the fact that the site has very specific, unique circumstances that wouldn't ordinarily apply to other surrounding sites.
okay, so it's being that it's
Yeah,
unique.
let me,
But I would like to hear from the city attorney.
Thank you.
let me make one point.
State Attorney, you have the floor.
Oh,
Hold on. State Attorney, you have the floor.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Madam Chair. I'll be quick, Commissioner Gibbs. I echo everything Planning Manager Dobson said. Policies change, the board can change. There is no such thing from a purely legal standpoint as precedent. Now, you all up there, of course, would like to, I assume, give consistent, make consistent decisions such that the community has some level of predictability. But from a purely legal standpoint, particularly tonight with all of the special circumstances that have been articulated up and down the board, I have zero concern about precedent moving forward. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
May
Thank
I
you.
just elaborate?
You may.
Okay, briefly. The way the guidelines work on this issue, and this is for the public as well as kind of highlighting my reasoning, there is no guideline that talks about precedent. It's neighborhood compatibility. When you allow a rooftop deck for one house, it enters the neighborhood compatibility guideline. And then it becomes difficult without some other reason to deny it for the next neighbor, and that may affect boards down the line. So to answer your question, it's not the precedent, it creates a neighborhood compatibility issue. At the same time, it is, even the statement against rooftop decks is still a guideline. So those are areas that we exercise our discretion.
And most rooftop decks create a privacy issue, right? So everything that we've, yes.
And
Okay.
it creates the dreaded Corona Del Mar look, which we're.
Well,
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Deputy,
All right, well, that
Mrs.
answers.
Mrs.
my-
Neve has the
Oh,
floor.
sorry, Mrs. Neve.
That's okay. The only other thing that I'd like to just add to the record as well is that in addition to, I agree with my colleague about, it does tend to domino that, oh gee, well, here's another rooftop deck. I guess, it's sort of neighborhood compatible. I want to state that I don't think this is neighborhood compatible. And I also want to further state that should in the future, there be a complete remodel or, a change, there'll be a different board, but that I don't want this to set any kind of precedent on this particular property to say, oh gee, there was an existing rooftop deck. So therefore now this 3,000 square foot home needs, to have one as well. So I just want to state that for the record as well.
That is, let me add, that is better said than what I said, and I 100% agree.
All right, do we have a motion?
And so, Madam Chair, if I
Yes.
may jump in, so it is a little bit different because the recommendation and resolution teed up for you all from the staff recommendation, which just is a recommendation, was one of denial. I believe I can count the votes here. You guys are going to look to approve it. So what the motion would be direct staff to come back at the next meeting with a motion, with the resolution approving the project consistent with the decision tonight. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to to deny?
No, so
No.
it would be a motion to direct staff to
Oh,
bring
okay,
back
so-
a resolution of approval consistent with the direction given here tonight.
What he said. Okay.
Do you want,
Okay.
do you want?
Yes, no, I'll do that. So I would like to make a motion that to direct staff to bring back a resolution approving this rooftop deck consistent with the feedback that you've gotten from the board.
I'll second.
Thank you. Board Member Coveney,
Yes.
Board Member Gibbs,
Yes.
Chair Pro Tem Neve,
Yes.
and Chair Gannon.
Yes.
Thank you. That's 4-0 approved for the return with an approved resolution.
Thank you, Marshall.
Bye.
Bye now. Okay, next up, 5.3, located at 480 Hill Edge Drive. Design Review 24-0533, ex parte.
Yes, I'll start. I spoke with the architect, Mr. Bull, and with the neighbor directly across the street, and I did not write down her name. So if someone else visited her, then I'm hoping that we can get her name on the record.
And not,
Sorry.
I went to the property, did a walk around, and that's it.
I did a site visit with Stephen Ball, the applicant.
And I drove by, walked around, spoke to Mr. Ball on the phone and went up the stairs of the property across the street. Daniel? Oh, Mr. Latham?
Yes, I'm still here.
Okay.
Um, Item 5.3 is for design review at 480 Hill Edge Drive. The project site is located here in the high school neighborhood. And the proposed project includes the upper level additions, elevated decks, door and window changes, exterior facade changes, and landscaping. And the additions are approximately 969 square feet to this existing residence. I want to point out in the staff report, it mentioned the height max at 25. However, the height limit of this property is 30 feet as the average lot slope is greater than 20%. And so the current height max is 28 and 8 inches, and the proposed height would be 29, 3 inches. It was staked correctly. And so it is the recommendation of staff to approve this project, and also mentioning that the applicant and neighbors agreed to conditions of approval.
All right, board, do you have questions for staff? Okay, the public hearing is declared open.
Am I on now? Okay, good. I'm Steve Ball. I'm the architect, and the owners are here with us this evening, Dean and Paula Badillo, and they commissioned me to take a very tired mid-century modern home and turn it into a family home, and at the same time upgrade it in every way, make it function a lot better. Right now, it's more of a couple house with an extra bedroom, a little bit convoluted and a little over specialized. They have 2 very young children and want to make this a lifetime home. We've worked on it. We reached out to the neighbors. I mean, over a year ago, we started our process. As soon as we had a rough idea of what we wanted to do, we took our laptop from neighbor to neighbor and showed them 3D of what it was going to look like, talked a little bit about what our goals and objectives were. Approximately half a year ago, we put up a temporary string line to illustrate the shed roof modification that we wish to make over the main part of the dwelling. It was really hard to. Am I done?
30 seconds.
Okay. Couldn't have been 5 minutes.
That was a quick 5 minutes.
Okay. The, once, we've been in plan check since last year. And, so nobody really got a chance to get serious about how this was going to impact them until our official string lines went up recently. So I prepared this document that you can see behind you. Do you prefer to look at that screen or this one here? Oh, you've got it. Okay. So the laser doesn't work on that screen. The on the front perspective, which is on the lower right, we've agreed with the neighbor across the street to black out the windows in the garage door or replace that entire panel over a concern for light emanating from within the garage that would impact her dark sky nighttime view. Also, for the same reasons, we've agreed to go with dark sky approved downward directed exterior lighting throughout. The clear story windows up above will have automated solar controlled blackout shades that'll come down when the sun sets and go up when the sun comes out in the morning. For our other neighbor to the northeast, her concerns were privacy and light. She was initially concerned and perhaps still concerned about raising the roof and a little bit of a loss of light from a side window, but we have not been as aggressive as we could. We're fairly far away from her home, non-issue. We felt we agreed to have translucent glass railings on the upper and mid-level balconies that face her home. We agreed to install mature screening trees and shrubs between our master bath window and her master bath so that they would not see each other. And we've agreed to have translucent glass in the master bathroom. And that's it.
That's it. Anyone, any member of the public wish to speak on this project, either for or against?
Hi, I'm Karen Lewandowski that he was just speaking of at 480 Hillage. I'm in support. I just wanted to verify that what we talked about is there and I see it and I'm really happy with what they're doing and that's all. I wasn't even going to say anything, but so any questions for me?
No.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you for speaking.
Excuse me, miss.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Have you seen Mr. Ball's letter?
I have, yes. And I forwarded that to Amber just and to Daniel, which Daniel verified.
No, I was just trying to find it.
In this letter as written, are okay?
Yes, that is what we agreed and I'm happy with those conditions. Okay, thank you.
Is there a lighting plan with this, or you're just using existing lighting?
There's not a lighting plan that reflects this agreement, but there is a lighting plan.
I'm sorry, which sheet is it? I could,
It would be, well, there is not a lighting plan.
Are you guys adding lights?
No, we're just replacing the lights that are there.
Okay, so it's a kind for kind.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, better kind.
Yeah, yeah. But replacing the lights that are there, not adding any lights,
That
just
is
for
correct.
clarification.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Well, would you like to have your 3 minutes of rebuttal?
I'm
No?
fine. Thank you.
Complication, no. So I've just questioned, no, you're out of turn. The board questions the applicant. Yep, okay, good. The public hearing is now closed. Board, can we go into discussion and deliberation? Okay.
All right. This is a good example of early neighborhood communications and how beneficial they are. And I think people on the board know how big an advocate I am. The houses in this area I know well. It's a compact area with views. lots of potential to impact neighbors to do even modest improvements. And your project in particular, with particularly raising the ceiling in the way you are and creating, I think, a really cool effect, creates privacy concerns for the uphill neighbor. And so instead of having a problem, either through lack of communication or intransigence, you dealt with each of the neighbors that were impacted and reached what I view are very reasonable and appropriate conditions, as set forth in your June 7, 2024 letter, which you walked me through when we were at the site. So I appreciate your approach. I think it paid dividends for your project, and it results in, I think, a neighborhood that is cohesive and will remain friendly, notwithstanding what is a roof increasing, modifying project in a very dense area. So with that said, I think that your project meets the neighborhood, the design review guidelines. It's neighborhood compatible. I walked the street. The mass and scale is appropriate. In fact, hardly seen from the street. Privacy is an issue, but they've been adequately addressed and remedied by the conditions. And then overall, your design is excellent. This is going to be a great house when it's completed. So with the conditions as specified in his letter, which should be a part of this motion, I would approve this project.
Thank you. Board Member Neve?
Yes, and I concur with my colleague. The only thing I'm uncomfortable with is not having the lighting plan. The one issue, and I think that you've addressed many of the potential issues, particularly the garage door that can be a beacon, and the night shades on the clear story windows. But I know that, there are different codes, and I don't know all of them, but at a minimum, I don't know what's existing now, but at a minimum, the stairs around the house, if it's every fourth step, if there's going to be one light per door, egress, those kinds of things. So I would just like to make sure that that's cleaned up and that that's documented, either what the existing, absolutely what the existing lighting plan would be, and that of course everything is shielded downward and those kinds of things, the night sky, our night sky ordinance. So, but other than that, I can absolutely support your project. So if you're in agreement to provide staff and document, in detail, the lighting, the proposed lighting, make sure that there's no more than 3 lumens and those kinds of things now that's updated, then if you would agree with that? Okay, then with that, I will support your project.
Mrs. Governey?
I'm sorry, Chair, would you mind if I just interjected? You could condition a lighting plan that would be reviewed and submitted to staff and reviewed by staff.
Okay, thank you.
I agree with my colleagues again, and I noticed that in your letter here, I guess it was Heather Chalmers across the street at 475 had requested that you do down-facing lighting and approve dark sky compliant. So based on the motion, I think that you mentioned based on this letter, it appears that at least you're already acknowledging the importance of that. So yes, I can get behind this project tonight. It looks great. And I want to thank the Padillos for reaching out to their neighbors. I think it's essential in our community, and the more we do it, the better we get. So thank you.
Well, I have nothing to add. I'd just like to say thank you for addressing the 2 neighbors' concerns. And I thought this was a thoughtful design with those concerns in mind. I support staff's findings for approval tonight, and I concur with my colleagues. And with the condition of approval that staff receives a lighting plan that at least is bare minimum to meet current code, I can approve this project.
Okay. Chair, I move that the board adopt Resolution 2024-0533 approving design review 2024-0533 for upper level addition, elevated deck, door and window changes, exterior facade change and landscaping, and finding said action exempt from CEQA under section 15301. Subject to the conditions, there's 7 of them set forth in the applicant's June 7, 2024 letter, which is part of the record, plus an additional condition that the applicants submit a lighting plan that's reviewed, subject to review and approval by staff. One question, Amber, when should we require that lighting plan be submitted?
I would say within 30 days.
Within 30 days. That's my motion.
I second.
Board Member Coveney,
Yes.
Board Member Gibbs.
Yes.
Chair Pro Tem Neve,
Yes.
Chair Gannon.
Yes.
It's 4-0 approval.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, last but not least, 5.4, located at 31131 Monterey Street, design review 24-0583. Mr. Conrad?
I will be recusing myself from this, Chair.
Okay. Or do we have ex parte?
Yes. I visited the site with Mr. Conrad and I've forgotten your name and is it, I'm sorry?
Nicholas.
Nick, yes. And also met the owner.
All right, I visited this site with Mr. Conrad and Nicholas, and that was it.
And ditto for me. Jim Conrad and Nicholas, last name? Signs, Nicholas Signs. And did not get to meet the owner or view the property, but I do appreciate, I've been looking at this property for years, so hopefully I get a tour of it soon.
Madam Chair, briefly, if I may interject, I apologize. I wasn't at my seat. I was putting down the other thing. The record does require that Board Member Coveney disclose why she is recused, and I can do that for you. You don't need to come up. It's because she lives within the stated
Noticing.
feet proximity. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah, thank you for that. Staff? Oh, Mrs. Sharma, nice to
Yeah.
meet you. You're our newest planner?
That's correct. We have a new senior planner. Her name is Shweta Sharma, and this is her second or third week with us. Second week with us, and she's presenting Garrett Wink's project.
Welcome
Okay.
aboard.
Yeah.
Good evening, Chair Gannon and members of the board. Shweta Sharma, Senior Planner, presenting item 5.4, a design review for 31131 Monterey Street. As you can see from the aerial, the subject property is located north of Pacific Coast Highway with residences to the south and east and a utility building to the northwest. The applicant, James Conrad, is requesting design review for modifications to a prior design review approval. Modifications include subterranean conversions to add a theater room underneath the garage area and a storage area underneath the residence. There will be an addition to the terrace, as well as relocation of the in-ground spa, a new glass wall, and landscaping improvements. Staff has analyzed the applicant's request with respect to the city's development standards, and the project conforms to all applicable zoning codes, general plan policy, and design review guidelines. To date, the project has received multiple letters of support from neighboring property owners with no letters opposing the project. Staff recommends that the Design Review Board determine that the project is categorically exempt, subject to CEQA Guidelines Section 15301 for existing facilities, in that the project consists of minor alterations to an existing structure. The project is located within a non-appealable area of the coastal zone. That concludes my presentation. I'm available for any questions, as is the applicant's architect.
Staff, do you have, board, do you have questions to staff? Okay, nice presentation. Okay, public hearing is declared open. You have the floor, 5 minutes.
I
Hi, members of the board, Madam Chair. I am Nicholas with James Conrad, and yeah, we are proposing two modifications for the project. One of the modifications is converting existing subfloor area into a movie theater and more storage to be able to relocate the existing laundry. And modification number two on the exterior part of the house is adding some hardscape to the left side of the existing deck and adding spa and a glass fence that runs along the property line. We are also proposing a landscape project, and I believe that's pretty much it. Yeah. So over here, something that was very important for us, that's why we mark the existing dirt path, is to show that the green areas, which shows the area that we're modifying, there's enough space for privacy, and there's actually, you can't really see the modifications from the existing dirt path. That's the proposed landscape plan. You can see on the left side, there's the hardscape addition with a barbecue area and the spa. And we're also proposing to make the whole deck like a nice arc instead of having these awkward corners. That's a schematic section. This section, the spa was 18 inches raised from the deck level, but we decided to keep it at grade for, I guess, what should I say, for just to make it flush. Yeah, to make it flush. Yeah. The floor plans from the interior modification are up in the presentation. So yeah, over here you can see this is actual pictures of the current house. On the left, it's the current state, and to the right side is our proposal where you can barely see the glass fence. Same, this is on the lower part of the existing dirt path. Left side is the current state of the house, and the right side is our proposal. This is the extension of the deck towards the left side of the house. And finally, the spa, which is at the level of the deck. And you can also see the glass fence over there. Just a brief note saying that we're proposing a new spa, the glass fence, and there was actually a previously approved site plan with a spa and a fence on the property line, but the previous owner decided not to build it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Does that conclude your presentation? Okay. Any member of the public like to speak against or for this project? Two in the back? No? Quit while you're ahead. Ms. Coveney? Okay. All right, well, would you like to have 3 more minutes to speak? Okay, okay. Then that concludes, well, board, do you have questions for the applicant? Okay, then that concludes the public hearing. Do we enter discussion deliberation on this? Yeah.
Well, I think this is a reasonable request. Everything is internal for the most part. I think that the requirement for the fence, having it be glass, I think is nice because then you can still see a lot of the natural environment around it. Can't see anything at all from the path. I know that originally that was a really big deal. So thank you for bringing that to everyone's attention, and I can support your project.
All right. My biggest concern really was the path. And I walked the path with Nicholas. This is, because it's a public path with a, kind of major path in view. I think the impact is really, worth looking at and having reviewed, and this has virtually no impact. And having a glass fence there makes all the sense in the world. I preferred the pool at ground level. You put it at ground level. I think that is an improvement. I think the lower profile at that level, the better, given that the pathway goes right along there. I think the impact is minimal. It's clearly neighborhood compatible. Mass and scale are appropriate. The internal conversion of floor space makes all the sense in the world. I didn't see any view or privacy impacts. Increasing the patio makes for a much more efficient and appropriate use of space. And it doesn't really have any significant impacts on the overall natural look of that rather unique lot. I looked at the landscaping, even though I'm not an expert in landscaping. It seems really low profile, appropriate, and beautiful landscaping. So I think it meets the guidelines, and I support the project.
And I concur with staff's presentation and findings, and I concur with what my colleagues had to say. I've walked that path before. I didn't even see the path when I was standing on the property at the back. So I didn't consider the impacts it would have, but I respect, yeah, you did. You brought sneakers. Yeah. So I can approve this project based on staff's findings and board member comments.
Board Member Kavni is absent.
Oh, we have to make a
Recused.
motion.
I'm sorry.
So, okay, so I'll make a motion to adopt resolution 24-0583, approving design review 24-0583 for modifications to a prior approval, including lower level additions, terrace addition, in-ground spa, and landscaping, and finding that said action is exempt from CEQA under section 15301.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Board Member Gibbs,
Yes.
Chair Pro Tem Neve,
Yes.
and Chair Gannon.
Absolutely.
Thank you. That's 3-0 approval. We have no further business. We would be adjourned until July 11th.
Okay, we are now adjourned until July 11th, 2024.
Thank you.
We'll see you then.
Ooh, ooh.